All rise. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The Supreme Court of Florida is now in ceremonial session. Let all who have cause to plead draw near, give attention, you will be heard. God save these United States, the great state of Florida, and this honorable court. Ladies and gentlemen, the Florida Supreme Court, please be seated.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Florida Supreme Court. We're going to start today with Chief Judge Timothy Osterhaus of the First District Court of Appeal leading us in the pledge, and then Chief Judge Harvey J. of the Fifth District Court of Appeal will offer the invocation. If you could please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justices.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for your blessings and for the opportunity to freely gather for this special event. As we celebrate Justice Tanenbaum, we pray that you will imbue him with your discernment and insight, that you will grant him the desire to judge fairly and righteously, to avoid partiality, and to never twist the words of the blameless. That you will give him the wisdom to judge the small and the great alike, and the strength to never be intimidated by those who would seek to influence him. That you will cause him to fear you and not man, and that you will assist him in being a truth seeker and a hater of lies, and help him to be a lover of fairness and a hater of iniquity. We ask for your blessing on his family, and for all those who care for him. We know that their support has made his service possible. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Judge Jay, Chief Judge Jay. We're so honored that all of you have joined us here today to celebrate the investiture of our newest colleague, Justice Adam Scott Tanenbaum. Justice Tanenbaum is the court's 94th justice, and he takes a seat with a long and distinguished history. His direct predecessors include Charles Kennedy, of course, but also Justices Raul Quintero, Major Harding, Arthur England, and even the legendary Glenn Terrell. Justice Terrell once wrote that when it comes to a court correcting itself, quote, "It's better to eat crow than to perpetuate an error. The crow is not rationed, and the approval of conscience will more than compensate for the eating." It sounds like Justice Terrell would have approved of Justice Tanenbaum's views on stare decisis, as you can see from your program today. As you know, Justice Tanenbaum received his commission in January and has been hard at work since then. Nonetheless, our ceremony today is a meaningful one, aimed at celebrating Adam's appointment with his family and friends, formally welcoming Adam to the court, and allowing him the opportunity publicly to take the oath and pledge his fidelity to the law and to the duties of his office. Today's investiture is also meaningful because it links the past, present, and future of our court as an institution and reminds the public and the justices ourselves of our animating purpose, to administer justice under law and thereby to promote the flourishing of the people of Florida. Throughout his career, Justice Tanenbaum has shown himself to be a servant of the law, and he has doggedly pursued excellence and truth at every step along the way. I have no doubt that he will continue to do so in our court for years to come. Before we begin today's presentations and speeches, I'd like to recognize and extend a special welcome to the members of Justice Tanenbaum's family who have joined us today. Adam's wife, Whitney, and their children, Annabelle and Emma Claire. Justice Tanenbaum's parents, Jack and Laura Tanenbaum. Justice Tanenbaum's father-in-law and his wife, David Smith and Joanne Urofsky. And several of Adam's cousins, Nancy and Jules Cohn, Adam, Arlene, and Rob Bammel, and Irene Kellner. Other friends from every stage of Justice Tanenbaum's life and career have also joined us today, many of whom traveled a great distance. Welcome to our court. There are too many current and former public officials to acknowledge individually, but I'd like to welcome those of you here from the executive and legislative branches of government. I think it's a great testament to Adam that so many of his former colleagues have come to celebrate with us today. It's especially great for me to see that there are so many of our former colleagues from the House of Representatives staff here today. There's only one person who asked me to name him individually, but I don't think Citizen CEO, Florida Board of Governors member, and Supreme Court JNC member, and double gator Tim Serio would want me to say that out loud. Justice Tanenbaum has a lot of friends in the state and federal judiciary, as evidenced by the large number of judges who are with us here today. I'm especially happy and honored to recognize former Justices Polston, Lawson, and Lagoa. And Paul, welcome to you too. It's great to see you. We're also joined by Chief Judge Alan Windsor of the Northern District of Florida. I think it was Alan who hired Adam to work in the Florida Solicitor General's office as Chief Deputy in 2014. And that was, although Adam had a great career before that, I think that was the first of many high-level state government jobs that, led most directly to the path to Adam being on the court now. And finally, I'd like to recognize that we have several members of the Supreme Court Judicial Nominating Commission with us here today. Thank you so much for your service and for joining us. All right. Our first speaker today is Chief Deputy Attorney General and former General Counsel to Governor Ron DeSantis, Ryan Newman, who will deliver remarks, present Justice Tanenbaum's credentials, and then introduce a video message from Governor DeSantis.
Well, Jesse Panuccio told me that I needed to be funny. So I thought, maybe I would start with a knock-knock joke or something like that, but I don't have anything for you. But, as the governor's representative here, I couldn't go without saying something. I'm honored to stand here today on behalf of the governor of Florida to deliver the commission memorializing the appointment of Adam Tanenbaum as the 94th Justice of the Supreme Court of Florida. It goes without saying that Justice Tanenbaum is supremely qualified for this high office. He has devoted many years of his professional life to serving the people of Florida in all three branches of state government. And he has built a sterling reputation as a deeply thoughtful, and some may say excessively thoughtful, lawyer and jurist. I have it on good authority that Justice Tanenbaum's capacity for legal work and his voracious appetite for exploring every conceivable angle of a legal problem, no matter how attenuated, are, shall we say, nearly limitless. Well, actually, it might be more accurate to say just limitless. But as supremely qualified as Justice Tanenbaum is, and I could go on singing his praises, the truth is that there are many lawyers in this great state who are more than qualified to hold this office. Justice Tanenbaum was not appointed just because he is a great lawyer and an even better person. Indeed, I can assure you that not one of the governor's 8 appointees to this court was put here just because of his or her qualifications and character, as impressive as those might be. The governor's appointees were selected because he believed, as did I for those appointments in which I was involved, that they shared the same jurisprudential worldview as the architects of our constitutional order, and that they would use their good offices at every opportunity to restore that worldview to a judiciary that has strayed far from it. As it turns out, the well-worn saying that personnel is policy applies just as well to the judicial branch. I wish it were not so. After all, the theory underlying our system of justice is that it does not matter who is wearing the robe in any given case. Each judge, no matter whom he or she might be, is simply applying the law the same as any other judge. And indeed, in many, many cases, that is certainly true. But if we are honest, we know that theory is frequently far from reality. The hard truth is that in some cases, perhaps more than we care to admit, the identity of the judge or judges will indeed determine the outcome of the case. This reality is the unfortunate result of the fact that not all judges share the same jurisprudential worldview. The dominant worldview today is largely defined by three attributes. First is the widespread belief that the law is what the court says it is. Second is the belief that law is the product of history and social practice. It is entirely separate from any enduring and universal truths. And third is the belief that courts are empowered with sweeping equitable authority to compel compliance with the law as they interpret it. If the law is what the court says it is, and law is entirely divorced from truth, and courts have broad authority to enforce compliance with their interpretation of the law, then the judiciary has ceased to be the least dangerous branch and has become the most dangerous one. But this worldview stands in stark contrast to that earlier generation of Americans going back to the founding. Under this older jurisprudential tradition, the law is discovered by courts, not declared by them. And court opinions are just that, opinions about what the law is. They are not the law itself. The judicial role is a modest one, largely confined to resolving disputes between parties. Courts do not purport to say what the law is for everyone else, and their equitable and other remedial powers are limited. Under the traditional worldview, moreover, law cannot be separated entirely from truth and morality. As one 19th century commentator described, both judges and lawyers have to interpret the law. In so doing, they refer to that inward standard of justice we call natural law. They assume rightly that the lawgiver could not possibly mean to prescribe what is wrong in itself or injurious to the common weal. And thus, in carrying out positive law, they always bear in mind, perhaps unconsciously, the universal truths from which positive law has sprung. Viewed from the perspective of generations long past, the judiciary today, state and especially federal, must appear unrecognizable. For many decades, judges have assumed powers that do not belong to them, and they have interpreted the law in ways that are inconsistent with the original understanding of the nature of law itself. I'm reminded of a quote from Cicero as he reflected on the fading of the Roman Republic. He said that our age inherited the Republic like some beautiful painting of bygone days, its colors already fading through great age. And not only has our time neglected to freshen the colors of the picture, but we have failed to preserve its form and outlines. For what remains to us nowadays of the ancient ways on which the Commonwealth was founded, he asked, we see them so lost in oblivion that they are not merely neglected, but quite forgot. And what am I to say of the men? For our customs have perished for want of men to stand by them, and we are now called to account, so that we stand impeached, like men accused of capital crimes, compelled to plead our own cause. I do not want it said of us that we neglected to restore our constitutional system, or that we failed to preserve its form and outlines, or that we forgot the traditional ways of our ancestors, or failed to stand by them. It is my hope that because of the governor's appointments to this court, culminating today with the investiture of Justice Tanenbaum, We will not stand impeached when we are called to give an account for what we did to preserve, protect, and defend our constitutional republic. Justice Tanenbaum, I know you're up to the task, and I congratulate you on your appointment to the Supreme Court. The governor regrets that he could not be here today, but he did leave us a video, which I hope we can play now.
Hello, I'd like to congratulate Justice Adam Tanenbaum on his investiture in the Florida Supreme Court. Justice Tanenbaum had a great legal career leading into his selection as a Florida Supreme Court justice, including being a standout on the First District Court of Appeal. He also has extensive experience working in both the legislative and executive branches. And I've said many times, I've been governor now for over 7 years. He knows more about state government in Florida than just about anybody that I've come into contact with. I know he's hit the ground running on the Florida Supreme Court. He's going to be a strong justice for many, many years to come. And at the end of the day, he's got the right philosophical foundation. He has the right interpretive approach, but he also has courage and a strong backbone to do what's right, even when it's not easy. Congratulations and good luck to you.
To deliver Justice Tanenbaum's commission, please.
Thank you very much.
And finally, Justice Tanenbaum, on behalf of the governor, I would also like to present you a framed certificate commemorating your appointment.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis, and thank you, Ryan, for those really thoughtful remarks. We appreciate what you said, and hopefully we'll be up to those ideals. It's good to know that everything didn't go downhill only starting in the 1960s, though. Sounds like we've had these problems for a long time. We now recognize Saya Baker-Barnes, who's the president of the Florida Bar, for a presentation. And Saya, on behalf of the court, I just want to thank you for your great service and being such a great representative of the bar for this past year.
So to Chief Justice Muniz, members of the court, members of the judiciary, Justice Tanenbaum, family, friends, and guests, good afternoon. It is my great privilege to be a part of this very special program today, Justice Tanenbaum, where we welcome you to the highest court in our state. I have the privilege of serving as president of the Florida Bar for 3 more weeks. Who's counting? And it has been an incredible journey, and one in which we work really hand in hand with the court to ensure that we are regulating the profession and protecting the public, and those are our premier and most important goals. And it really is an incredible opportunity because we get to know the justices very well along this journey, and we work together to ensure that the bar is providing the support and services that our lawyers need, and more importantly, that the members of the public need. So Justice Tanenbaum, I've had the privilege now of working with you since, I think, January, right? You hit the ground running, as they've said, and learned a lot about you and your family, really just, I think, great detail about the background and moral support that you bring to the court. This is, I think as president of the Florida Bar, you get to speak at a lot of investitures. Very few at the Florida Supreme Court, but nevertheless many investitures. And I often say that serving as a judge or as a justice is not meant for every lawyer. It's reserved for very few, and for a reason. And certainly serving on this court is reserved for very few. Those who already have the credentials. We know that you have the credentials, the track record, so to speak, to serve on this court. but it comes with also a very high level of integrity, a level of resilience, a level of responsibility to issue essentially what will be the final ruling for the litigants in many cases. And we know that you are more than equipped, more than prepared, and more than ready to do so. And we are honored to welcome you and your family to the court. So it is my great privilege as president of the Florida Bar to present you with an engraved Bible on behalf of the bar. And it reads, Justice Adam Scott Tanenbaum, Supreme Court of Florida Investiture Ceremony, June 4th, 2026. I pray, Justice Tanenbaum, that this Bible provides you with the strength, the resilience, the courage, the support, the sustenance that you will need to make difficult decisions, complex decisions, but very important decisions for the people of this great state, of our great state. And we know that you already have all of the tools in your toolbox to do so, but we pray that this Bible gives you that extra that we know we all need in this journey as lawyers and as jurists to do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. So congratulations, welcome to the court. It's my privilege to share this moment with you.
Thank you, Saya. We appreciate it. The court will now recognize Mo Jazeel, a partner with Holtzman Vogel in Tallahassee, for his remarks. Mo.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court. The prior panel rule, it's something I won't be talking about. I'll leave that to Justice Tanenbaum and others. I also won't draw lessons from antiquity, from Pericles and Plutarch, from Socrates and others. I'll leave that to Ryan Newman. He's over there. He'll host a seminar at the end of this investiture. I'll limit myself to talking about my friend and former client, Adam, as he makes his move from a court in Tallahassee to, well, a court in Tallahassee. So, how did our friendship begin? It began as most friendships do. I sued him. To be more precise, my then client sued his then client, the Florida Secretary of State. Working against and arguing with Adam, do that with Ryan too, but working against and arguing with Adam was the best kind of professional hazard. He was smart, he was civil, he forced me to sharpen my own arguments and sometimes question my life choices. I've never had to prepare so much for a Rule 26F conference or a meet and confer before or since. Now, Adam liked me too, or at least that's what I tell myself. When he became general counsel to the Florida House, he brought me on as his outside lawyer. There, again, I saw firsthand the qualities that make Adam special. No assumption was safe, no detail was overlooked, no box in the Florida archives went unopened, though some probably should have remained closed. And, of course, no rapper or celebrity chef was safe from Adam's subpoenas on behalf of the Florida House at the time. Along the way, I also got to know Adam, the person, better. His love of soccer isn't just a hobby. It's a lifestyle complete with custom-designed jerseys and trips to faraway, distant tournaments. Watching him become a Swiftie, purely to get closer to his daughters, showed that he's a loving father. And his weekly calls to a friend whose son was hospitalized for months revealed something deeper. A quiet, steady compassion and decency that doesn't make headlines but matters far more in the final analysis. By the way, I have it on good authority that Taylor Swift was sent an invitation to this investiture. I am not sure if she's going to be here, but keep your eyes open, be ready for it, and if you're handed a friendship bracelet, don't shake it off. What I'm trying to say is this. Governor DeSantis appointed a smart and hardworking man to this court, but above all else, he appointed a good man. Hamilton tells us that the judiciary has neither force nor will, but merely judgment. If you think about it, that places an extraordinary burden on judges. They must channel great reserves of integrity, humility, and discipline to set aside personal preferences in the exercise of their judgment. I know Adam's up to the tasks precisely because he's a good and decent man. Our state, yours and mine, is fortunate to have Adam Scott Tanenbaum as its newest justice. I know, and the people of this state will soon discover, that Justice Tanenbaum will approach every case with thorough preparation and thoughtfulness. He will remain steadfast and impartial amid the inevitable pressures of both praise and scorn. He will honor this court, he will do his job, and he will do his job exceedingly well. With that, I'm honored to congratulate Justice Tanenbaum on his well-deserved appointment to this court. May your tenure be long, your docket manageable, your opinions short, your footnotes omitted, and dissents rare. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Mo. I now will call upon Judge Lori Rowe to approach the podium and make remarks. Thank you.
Lower this a little bit. Mr. Chief Justice, members of the court, friends and family, Justice Tanenbaum, are you ready for it? What a joy it is to gather today among so many friends to commemorate Justice Tanenbaum's investiture as a judge on this court. I'm going to begin with the book of Hebrews in chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. Let us run the race with endurance, the race marked out for us. It's a verse that I have shared with Adam often, and it conveys at least three key concepts. First, that our paths are divinely ordered by a God who equips us with the gifts, the talents, and the experiences to follow that path before us. Second, that each path is uniquely marked. We don't run another person's race, and it's a good thing, Emma Claire, because she's one of the fastest kids in the state of Florida. And third, we must run the race with endurance, with patience, and most of all, faith. It won't always be easy, but it will be worthwhile. And along the way, I have seen my friend tested, emerging stronger, and being found worthy after every challenge. The path marked out for Adam inevitably led to where he sits today. Still, it meandered a little bit, and he often quips that if you look at his resume, it doesn't look like he could hold down a job. But that's not quite right, because on closer inspection, you see that going back and forth to his law firm at Carlton Fields, he was continually called back into public service by Florida's leaders, people who recognize his keen intellect, his hard work ethic, his respect for the rule of law, and his genuine love for our state of Florida. And as we can see clearly in retrospect, there was purpose in every single step along the way. As he moved from Tampa to Tallahassee. And every step, Adam put in the work to understand his role in our constitutional system and what his role required. He served as a federal and state assistant public defender, where he learned the ins and outs of criminal practice and had a deep and abiding respect for trial courts and the lawyers who appear before them. He served as our Deputy Solicitor General, along with many other predecessors in this room who've served in that office alongside him, including Judge Nordby, who was appointed the same day as him. His next stop was to serve as General Counsel at with the Secretary of State, where he learned more about the executive branch and, fortunately for his service on this court, a little bit of election law. And his last public service role before the bench was as General Counsel to the Florida House of Representatives, where he really dove into the legislative process, and it prepared him well, again, for all of the administrative function here at the court. And so when Governor DeSantis appointed him in 2019 to the First District Court of Appeal, he was well prepared for the judicial office. But his early days on the court were marked by the irregular order caused by the shutdowns caused by the pandemic in 2020. That was not at all to his liking, the shift to remote work. He was a new colleague, very eager to dive deeply into discussions with his colleagues. But we quickly learned of his devotion to his family, how proud he is of Whitney and their children. We enjoyed his quick wit, his extensive knowledge of popular culture, and we tolerated his passion for all things Taylor Swift, which even made it into a presentation on Extraordinary Writs. Only Adam could do that. But in his work, we witness his emergence as a bold and fearless leader. We entrusted him to author 2.5 en banc opinions on our court. I've been a judge on the first DCA for 17 years. There are some judges who never are granted that opportunity and trust. So it says a lot that he did that in 6 years. Simply put, he just wasn't the run-of-the-mind kind of judge. Mine. In every case, every issue, big and what may seem small to others, he was laser-focused at understanding the meaning and origin of the principle of law at issue. And like the Terminator from the 1980s films, he would not stop until he found the answer, even when it meant a deep dive into the dusty old books, to Blackstone, to sources going back to 1550 BC on heart disease. He would not hesitate to get into the Wayback Machine and find the source. And why? All of this is driven by his love for the law and his genuine desire to know and understand it. He also asks a lot of questions, and it wasn't long after he joined the court that his surname, Mr. Tanenbaum, became a verb, and I don't know if you know that. Some lawyers reported after oral arguments that they had been Tanenbaumed. Off the bench, he asked just as many questions of his colleagues and chief judges as Judge Osterhaus and Judge Ray would attest. Not content with the answer that we already said it in an earlier decision, or that the court had always done it that way, he wanted to understand the whys and determine whether those decisions and policies aligned with the law, and most particularly our Constitution. And when they didn't line up, he wasn't reluctant to question those decisions. At the same time, I've witnessed him exhibit great humility, a virtue that is much more than a judge's willingness to admit that he got it wrong or to change his mind. And yes, he did that a few times on our court. Those are important qualities, of course, but judicial humility is much, much more than that. It is a respect for our Constitution. It's an understanding on the limits on the exercise of judicial power, and it is a fidelity to our judicial oath. He is taught on this subject of judicial power at least 3 of Florida's law schools and understands well the separation of powers among the 3 branches of government and the allocation of judicial power among the circuit, county, district, and Supreme Court. We met many times in my office going back to the text because he's not satisfied just to do it from memory. He will go back to the words. And he's always urged a return to first principles on the matter of judicial power. And since he's been on the Supreme Court, we've seen him writing on that subject already, and we all eagerly look for the Thursday opinion release, though I did miss it today. During our time serving together, I also saw him grow as a judge. A frequent desire of many newly appointed judges is that they will write in every case. You quickly find, especially in a year like 2011, that you might have 7,000 cases on your court. So Judge Thomas knows well that's not quite possible. So there's always a tension between managing your time to understand thoroughly the case before us and getting it right and fulfilling our oath. Efficiency is a hallmark of our market economy, and that concept works very well in business. But we are not in the business of making widgets. We render decisions that forever alter the status between the parties who appear before us, adjudicating their important substantive rights. Judicial excellence, then, cannot be measured how quickly we render a decision or even how many opinions we write. The Supreme Court's official motto, which you see behind me in several places and on this lectern, mirrors this view of judging. Adopted in 1950 formally, it says, "Satsito si recte," which means soon enough if done rightly. The motto first appeared on the court seal between 1820 and 1845. There is a seal in the archives that bears that inscription. We can't really pinpoint its origin before that, As a student of Latin along with Judge Nordby, what I found was it might be a variant of a quote from St. Jerome, who attributes it to Cato the Elder, the Roman statesman, "Sat cito si sat bene," which means quickly enough if done well. What's really important about these two Latin phrases is the word si. It's quickly enough if done well, quickly enough if done rightly. The court's motto then serves as a formal declaration of the court's commitment to deliberate thoroughly to get the correct result every time. In my time in the First District, I've served with 30 judges, many of them here today, along with many other exceptional judges across the state. And as a Floridian, if it were my life or liberty at stake, if it were my property rights at issue, the custody of my children to determine, there are few judges I would trust more to work harder to find the law and endeavor to get it right than Justice Tanenbaum. I'm going to close with a 19th century prayer for judges. Justice Tanenbaum, I pray that God will in every case give you the grace to hear patiently, to consider diligently, to understand rightly, and to decide justly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. It really means a lot to us to see how much Adam's colleagues from the First DCA appreciate him, and we really appreciate those remarks. And we'll postpone our study of whether to retire sat cito si recte. Okay, the next speaker is someone who Adam and I both love dearly, Judge Brad Thomas. I think I made Brad a Catholic, and Adam made Brad an originalist. So, Brad, if you could please approach the podium for remarks.
Thank you so much, Chief Justice, Justices. It's an honor to be here. Justice Tanenbaum, his family and friends, all those who have come to this honorable court to celebrate and recognize Justice Tanenbaum. I was given strict orders to focus on the serious nature of this presentation, which was almost completely stolen by Mr. Newman. So instead, what I'll do is just acknowledge that, first off, I very much enjoyed your remarks. I thought they were inspiring. But to also note, strictly on a very serious personal nature, if the audience doesn't mind, that Justice Tanenbaum, I very much enjoyed all the Oreo cookies. And we also enjoyed the cookies in our suite that your law clerks helped repossess from your desk. So that was a huge help as we tried to read your lengthy opinions, I might add. In all seriousness, we're here to celebrate a judge who had a profound influence on our entire court. It's certainly a profound influence on me. I entitled my remarks, before I saw your program, Justice Adam Tanenbaum, a justice for the ages, like Sir William Blackstone, St. Thomas More, and Justice Clarence Thomas. And why is Justice Tanenbaum a justice for the ages? Well, we've already heard how Justice Tanenbaum does not shrink from seeking the origins of the law. As my friend Judge Paul Hawks put it, Justice Tanenbaum is a law enabler, not a law creator. And a better way to put it might be, both for judges and lawyers, but for the branch I'm speaking to, Justice Tanenbaum is a judicial liberator. And what does that mean? That means that Justice Tanenbaum, as the Chief Justice has already acknowledged from the great quote from Justice Terrell, is that judges make mistakes. I made mistakes. Other courts have made mistakes. And when they make mistakes, the question then becomes, when they confront those mistakes, whether they're own or whether they're the prior mistakes of other colleagues whom they respect dearly, is what is to be done about it. Well, Justice Tanenbaum, and I to some extent, have the philosophy that what is to be done about it is to reject those mistakes. And that takes a great amount of judicial humility, which is why Justice Tanenbaum in many ways is a justice for the ages. A justice or a judge who is arrogant or prideful is not going to be well regarded either by his colleagues, by the public, or by history. And Justice Tanenbaum, who is a lover of history, is going to be well regarded because he cares about finding the law, not creating the law, not making the law, but finding the law. And that actually is very liberating, but it also entails very, very difficult work. As Judge Rose so eloquently put it, it takes the ability and the desire and the discipline to do the hard work to find the law, which is not always easy. It may be the fact that we have a case that I wrote about that actually our court went en banc to consider it, where we had made a pretty serious mistake on the standard of review of non-final agency action, when in fact there was a statute right on point. So the ability to do that takes a special character. Now, when I first heard about the prior precedent rule, I thought, well, of course that's the rule. We're bound by decisions of our prior panel court opinions. That's not true. And it took a brilliant judicial mind to convince me that it wasn't true. Even Judge Day and I had a conversation once where he intelligently noted the dissenting opinion in a case, and we talked about that. Well, now I'm of the view, thanks to Justice Tanenbaum, that that dissenting opinion may be correct, and it does not require the court to go en banc, which I can tell you is, I believe, a judge who has authored more en banc opinions than anyone else, and certainly even filed one as a lawyer. That is a very destructive process. It's different here, where the court sits en banc in all cases. But even in this court, I'm quite sure it is not easy to acknowledge a mistake and say, we recede from that prior error. Justice Tanenbaum, as Judge Rowe pointed out, is a man of great intellect. In fact, it's a penetrating intellect. It's an intellect that gets to the very heart of the matter very quickly, even though it may take great research to get there. He looks to the sources of the law. I consider the greatest justice on the United States Supreme Court to be Justice Clarence Thomas. And like Justice Thomas, Justice Tanenbaum is not a person who adheres to, shall we say, platitudes, even when it comes to textualism. A decision that we've often talked about, that some lawyers now criticize, Bostock versus Clayton County, that decision is not necessarily a decision that some of us would agree is based on textualism. Because it takes what Mr. Newman pointed out is an ability and the courage to look to natural law as well. But even beyond natural law, which is the law written on the hearts and the conscience of every man and woman and given to you by God, where you know what's right or what's wrong, Justice Tanenbaum also looks to the common law, to Sir William Blackstone. But he also is a man of humility because he understands that every judge is an independent constitutional officer, and every judge is deserving of respect. As independent constitutional officers, that's the key why they're not bound by mistakes of the past. They must make their own decisions, they must be held responsible for their own decisions, and they must be courageous and willing to find the answer so that they know that they have exercised that authority given to them by the governor, by the people, and that is the authority to exercise judgment. A definition of a brilliant judge is a judge who is intelligent, innovative, and has impact. But Justice Tanenbaum's already done that. And that's why he's a brilliant judge. He's certainly had an impact on me, which I'm pleased to acknowledge. I hope I've had an impact on him regarding natural law. I think that's an evolving issue. But it's the character of a judge who actually changes the course of judicial philosophy. Recently, a federal appeals court judge from the Fifth Circuit also criticized the prior precedent rule in the federal appellate courts. This is an idea that was started by Justice Adam Tanenbaum. It's gathering momentum. It's gathering steam. Now, I noticed in your program you talked about fighting dragons. My friend, we fought some dragons. Some en banc dragons, some procedural dragons. I remember when Justice Tanenbaum first got on the court, and it was during the pandemic, and it was a difficult time. And he was brand new. I don't think I'd ever seen him before. And we were called in for a court conference. It was tense. As we were told, we had to go home. And we were not going to see each other anymore. We were not going to work together. So naturally, this was a difficult time. And this new judge, who I'd barely met, I don't think, raised his hand and said, well, how does this end? And I thought to myself, who do you think you are? You just got here. Well, I soon found out who Justice Adam Tanenbaum is, and my life has become so much richer through meeting him, through Chief Justice Carlos Muniz, who's correct. He brought me to the Catholic faith, and Justice Tanenbaum liberated me from the prior precedent rule. So I can tell you that my life has been enriched by both of you. You know, I mentioned St. Thomas More, and the character of St. Thomas More is a characteristic that Justice Tanenbaum shares, and that's moral integrity. Justice Tanenbaum not only is brilliant, has not only, in my opinion, changed the course of history for the Florida courts because before Justice Tanenbaum started developing this idea that, wait a minute, we're not bound by a 27-year-old incorrect decision that has bad analysis. It may have great analysis, and it may be worth following. But if it doesn't have great analysis and it's incorrect, we're not going to follow it. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that is an innovative, earth-shattering, I know it doesn't sound that way perhaps to everybody, but that is an earth-shattering change in judicial philosophy. But it also requires moral integrity. The ability to recognize that your prior colleague's work deserves respect, it deserves consideration, and he has never been disrespectful of anybody, of their work. He will put you to the test, and I've had arguments with him, and I've backed down in arguments with him, but once. But all kidding aside, Justice Tanenbaum seeks to find the right answer, and he does so by going back to the original sources, I said. What are those original sources? The Constitution, enacted by the people of Florida. General law, that is statutes enacted by the elected representatives of the people. As my friend Judge Paul Hawks once said, the people that go knocking on doors in August to get elected. And the common law granted to us of the traditions of the English law, which is a heritage and a treasure we all share. I first appeared in this court 39 years ago arguing a case called State v. Law. It was a case involving second-degree murder. A woman's boyfriend had murdered her son. Our court, a long time ago, reversed the conviction based on a standard of review of circumstantial evidence that this court had adhered to for many, many years. Justice Lawson, who's here today, originally wrote the opinion where this court receded from that rule. But that rule remained in effect for 75 plus years. And it hurt a lot of people. The victim in that case used to call me almost every week crying. So it is not just abstract legal proceedings we're talking about here. The ability to find the original sources and get it right in a court which determines cases that affect 24, 25 million people is incredibly important. In conclusion, I recently read an edifying book called A Cardinal for the Ages about a cardinal who served Pope St. Pius X a long time ago, 1903 to 14. Like him, Justice Tanenbaum has shown the fortitude, the courage, and the moral integrity to face tough decisions, to make the right decisions, and to bring people along. And for that, I agree with, obviously, Governor DeSantis and Mr. Newman and all who have spoken here. We are all extremely fortunate to have Adam Tanenbaum on the Florida Supreme Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Justice Tanenbaum gave a really beautiful speech at Brad's retirement ceremony, and it's really edifying to see the friendship that you two have. Although I have to ask, was it really that hard to convince you to be liberated from the prior panel precedent thing? Okay. We now have reached the high point of the investiture, which is the ceremonial taking of the oath by Justice Tanenbaum, and I'd like to invite Judge Bo Winokur, another of his former colleagues from the First District Court of Appeal, to administer the oath at the podium, and Justice Tanenbaum will be joined there by his wife, Whitney. After the oath, Marshal Kearse will escort Justice Tanenbaum to the bench. And the kids, too. Yes, please. If you could please join your dad, too, that'd be great. Yeah.
State your name.
I, Adam Scott Tanenbaum,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida.
that I am duly qualified to hold office
I am duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform
and that I will well and faithfully perform
the duties of Justice of the Supreme Court,
the duties of Justice of the Supreme Court,
on which I am now about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Justice Tanenbaum, we'd be honored to hear your response.
I have to say, it's been a growing, overwhelming day. It's built over the course of the last few hours, and then I have to tell you all, to begin with, sitting down there, I actually missed you guys. So I'm happy to be up here now. I mean it. I really did. Let me start by making the same disclaimer that the Chief Justice made during his investiture. So I will apologize for the use of I and me in these remarks to an extent that would be unforgivable in any other context. His disclaimer struck me for the sincere humility that positions like ours require. I heard him say it before I became a judge, and since becoming one myself, I've strived to work for in the same spirit. In fact, my clerks know my instruction: never begin an opinion with the word I, and we haven't. I'm also going to crib the Chief's quote from St. John Henry Newman's Meditations. "Oh my God, my whole life has been a course of mercies and blessings shown to one who has been most unworthy of them." And I'm going to say, over the course of today and the days leading up to this investiture, the people that have contacted me and then standing, even just taking photos outside the courthouse and watching basically my entire life, the show or the This Is Your Life, Adam Tanenbaum, basically, that's how I felt. I saw the multiple segments of my life come up the steps over the course of the day today, and it's been quite moving. And I will say, it has made me feel totally unworthy of the responsibility, seeing the love and the trust that my friends and family and acquaintances and former colleagues have put into me being here today. I'm going to add to the quoted meditation one other from St. Newman, which is also, I feel, apt, and this is how I feel. God knows me and calls me by my name. God has created me to do Him some definite service. He has committed some work to me, which He has not committed to another. I have my mission. I never may know it in this life, but I shall be told it in the next. Somehow I am necessary for His purposes. I have a part in this great work. I am a link in a chain, a bond of connection between persons. He has not created me for naught. I shall do good. I shall do His work. My childhood friend Barbara reminded me just last night that this is a big deal. And I thought about that last night driving home and again today. It's a profound statement. It's profound because we can get caught up in this process of achieving whatever goal and miss the significance of what we are seeking to do and why we're actually doing this. And the funny thing is, and I was telling the chief this morning in the parking garage, an investiture is kind of a peculiar ceremony. So, I've already been sworn in. I've been a justice for 4 months. And so here we are, we're doing it again. Why? Someone told me the answer. The first time is for us. So when I was sworn in January by the Chief Justice, that was for me. That was to start the job. It's necessary. The Constitution requires it. The second time is for everyone else. It's for everyone that has believed in me, has been a part of my life over the years, and have chosen to make the trip, have either made the trip across the street or across town, or from down south, or from wherever, from Virginia. And in Barbara's case, and my friends in Seminole who are seated here, everyone has made the trip. I carry that with me. That is a huge responsibility. And so this investiture is not just for me, it's for all of us. And I recognize that it's not just a triumph for me, a professional triumph, but it's a triumph for everyone that's been a part of my life and part of this journey over the last, 5+ decades. Hard to believe. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone that's here. So speaking of the process, I went back and looked at my journal, and yes, I did keep a journal this time. I told myself if I ever applied for the Supreme Court again that I would, and I'm glad I did. I kept it from the first day, the day that Justice Kennedy did make his announcement. It's filled with details of the campaign, which is what the process really is. Anyone that's been through the process knows it is more than just applying for a job. It is truly a campaign. It's hard to describe to someone who has not been through the process just how challenging and emotional it is. It's as grueling and emotionally trying as any political campaign, as my cousin, Senator Rader, by the way, is my cousin, another cousin from South Florida, was omitted inadvertently, but so thank you for coming up from South Florida. I know that he like Tim Serio, he would want his name mentioned, so I am mentioning Kevin Rader. He didn't make the trip, and I'm happy he's here. Same with what happens after the appointment announcement. Again, it is hard to describe the range of emotions one experiences the moment that happens. The whirlwind created on January 14, 2026, when the governor came to my high school in Seminole, Florida, and announced my appointment. That whirlwind, which only has led up seemingly just a couple months later, led to an overwhelming outpouring of support from well-wishers, from family, friends, acquaintances, strangers. And for a while, it all seemed like a fantasy, almost unreal for a couple months. I mean, I remember sitting here for the first time, looking up and asked myself, is this really happening? How did I get here? These are just questions that, I continue to ask myself when we're here. It's breathtaking and quite humbling. With the benefit of some time to reflect, reflection prompted by the planning of the ceremony, in fact, I can see truly God's providence in all of it. And I've been counseled on this. Judge Rose counseled me on this. Nancy McGowan, who I'm going to mention in a moment, has counseled me on this point. Believe it or not, you might not see it, but there's God's providence in what's going on, and this is your path. I will strive to be ever aware of the gravity of the responsibility bestowed upon me. So that's my introduction. Let me get to a very important part of this. This is the thank yous. So this is an important part of the investiture. My colleagues have mastered the art. I hope to be up to the task. A little bit at least. A ceremony like this necessarily prompts reflection on family and friendship. The journey to here did not start yesterday, and the journey has not been a solo voyage. I am truly humbled when I think of all the people, and I swear to God, I'm going to get through this without crying. I practiced. I am truly humbled when I think of all the people who have touched my life in some way, who saw something in me worthy of their time and attention that has made me the person I am and allowed me to reach this point in my career. Thank you first to everyone here attending the ceremony. I know it's a sacrifice of your time, a precious time, away from your family, away from your jobs. Maybe that's actually a blessing. I don't know. Depends on your job. But I know it's a sacrifice. You could be doing many other things, and it's hard to be here and not somewhere else. And I do appreciate that you've chosen to share this time with me. It means quite a bit. Like I said, many of you have traveled long distances to be here, judges, friends, former teachers, colleagues, just to share this moment. And when I think about it, when I was thinking about it this morning, and I was in a conference room and just looking again at my life in a way, it's actually quite overwhelming. So I'm going to kind of just move on. But I wish I could name all of you. Please accept my sincere thanks to all of you. Hopefully you know who you are. I mean, if you're here, then you do. You have touched my life, and I'm the better for it. And I hope to be worthy of your contribution and your presence here and the trust you put in me. I, of course, am proud to be a product of the Tampa Bay area, particularly my hometown, the city of Seminole, not Seminole County, and not the football team, the city of Seminole in Pinellas County. I have friends that I've known since elementary, middle, and high school here who have traveled from as far away as Virginia, as I mentioned, from Barbara, and from as near as down the street here in Tallahassee. They seated here in front and throughout the audience. Your friendship over the decades has meant the world to me. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to my extended family, of course, who have traveled from South Florida: Jules, Nancy, Arlene, Adam, Rob, Irene, and Kevin. What a sweet surprise that each of you would make the trip, and I remember when I saw the RSVPs, it was very unexpected, not necessary, but I feel the love, and I'm grateful that you're here. It's been a blast. Let me also say, I'm going to take a moment. Before I take that moment, I do want to do a shout out because I know they're going to razz me later if I don't. I'm going to give a shout out officially to the Tallahassee Dragons, my Tallahassee soccer crew, a band of brothers and sisters that have taught me a lot more than just how to play or how not to play soccer. All right, so I did that shout out. You can check that box. Thank you guys for being here. I know it's almost soccer time, so I appreciate you being here, and I know it's not just because of the reception afterwards with the open bar. All right, let me turn this to in all seriousness. This event does not happen by magic, as everyone here knows, has been through it. It doesn't happen on its own. To pull this off requires a tremendous amount of work, time, and patience with me, in fact. Specifically, I am not an easy charge. So I have to pause and recognize my office savior, my judicial assistant, Erica Abundanza. I know she hates this. She's like sinking in the literally sinking in the chair right now. But I have to do it because Erica has been a family friend since our soccer parent days, which should continue. And when she agreed to be my assistant while I was still at the first DCA, that may have been one of the most important days in my judicial career. Her ability to organize, to stay calm under pressure, to tolerate me and my idiosyncrasies, something that my colleagues are still figuring out. And to do it all with warmth and grace qualifies her for judicial sainthood, if there were such a thing. She threw herself into the transition to this court, which happened practically overnight, and then threw herself into the planning of this event, which has seemingly taken months, I think it actually was. She is amazing, and I could never sufficiently express the depth of my gratitude for her service. So thank you, Erica. And I do have something for you, just to embarrass you further. If you want to you can just go ahead. Thank you also to Mark Miller and the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society for the amazing work and support they provided, from the programs to the reception and many things in between. I'll be honest, before I got here, I had no idea what the Florida Historical Society did. I always heard about the event every year that I got invited to that I didn't attend, because I didn't think it applied to me. But now that I've seen it, it's a fantastic organization. They do so many things for this court, for the institution. And now I've seen it close, up close and personal. And so thank you to both Mark and the entire society. Many of the Board of Trustees, I think, are here, so thank you to all of you as well. Thank you to Dean O'Connor, Erin O'Connor, FSU College of Law. I think she's still the dean until just soon she's not going to be. But I appreciate Dean O'Connor for allowing us to use the beautiful space in the rotunda. Thank you for the support for the reception provided by the Hillsborough County Bar Association. the Christian Legal Society, and the Clearwater Bar Association also for their support of the reception. I also want to thank everyone here at the court. From day one, I have to tell you, this, I mean, it is like a mini community. It's like a neighborhood. You move in the first day, and everyone here, my new colleagues, the marshal, his deputies and staff, the clerk and his staff, public affairs staff, the librarians, the central staff, the judicial assistants, my sometimes gym partner, Eric McClure, and his OSCA staff. You owe me a visit. I haven't seen you lately, Eric. Have been gracious, supportive, and welcoming, and I thank everyone for that. Thank you to all my former law clerks, a number of whom are here, and to my current clerks, Tara and Kelsey, Terry Yeager and Kelsey Williams, who shared in the ups and downs of the process leading to this moment and have had my back all along. Then raced right after the appointment to smooth the transition, again, which happened overnight. They find out about it, and suddenly, like, we're moving, we're packing. They had everything packed in a day. They had everything moved to this court in another day. And if it hadn't been for them, I would still have stuff in boxes in my office. They know me. They've seen my work of the past, where the blank walls, so they took it upon themselves to decorate the office. And I appreciate everything they've done in that process. And thank you to those wonderful friends who supported me in the process, this campaign that I've talked about, who took all my phone calls, did the behind-the-scenes work, counseled me, advocated for me. It is so time-consuming and emotionally draining, and to have people there by your side doing some of that work as well, it is so edifying, and I really can't thank all of you enough, including a few that I do have to mention by name. I have to say Nancy McGowan. I have to mention her name. My #1 cheerleader for years and spiritual mentor. If you don't know her, you really should get to know her. She does not let up. She does not let up. And so thank you, Nancy. Martin Garcia, who I know doesn't like to get attention, but smart in all things important, and there to offer candor and always the right words at the right time. And so I'm appreciative to Martin for his assistance and support. Jesse Panuccio, of course I've got to mention Jesse, who understands the true north in the movement. So thank you for what you did for the movement and for me. And of course, Ryan Newman, who you've heard from. I don't think I need to explain more about what Ryan has done, but I do consider him personally to be the movement's and my spiritual revivalist. And I tell him, like, I think once a month I just need a speech from him just to get jazzed up again. I mean, in a way that only a few people can get jazzed up by natural law and natural law discussions. But so thank you, Ryan and Jesse. Zach Lloyd, who's now come back from D.C. To be here, who I described to friends in the process as my, or to friends as my process guide or my process Sherpa, and also a former student. He believed in me from the very beginning, and I am so thankful for everything that he's done as well. Jason Unger, my professional godfather, my professional and personal godfather. I also have to thank my dear friends and former colleagues, Brad Thomas, who you heard from, Harvey J., and Lori Rowe, for all the hours that you spent talking with me, getting my spirits back up, advocating for me, counseling me. So thank you. And also to the other two former chief judges, former Chief Judge Stephanie Ray, who couldn't be here today, and current Chief Judge Tim Ostras for another year. Thank you to both of you as well for having my back in some difficult times and supporting me through all of that. Jason Gonzalez, of course, we can't go through this process without mentioning Jason, a fixture and a true believer, and again, a spiritual guide for us as well. Thank you to the Supreme Court Judicial Nominating Commission, many of whom are here. It's a thankless job. You don't get nearly the thanks you should. It's a lot of work in a short amount of time in the particular process that we went through. Thank you for taking my calls early on, and thank you for everything you do in service of the state. To the governor's legal office, of course, you do so much work on the front lines, doing what the governor's talked about, with respect to the judiciary and making the Florida judiciary better. Thank you for all the contributions you did in the process. Thank you for including Rochelle, who's sort of the she holds it all together, and she's one of the warmest people that I met, and it was so great to see her smile in a very otherwise nerve-wracking process. So thank you to everyone in the governor's legal office. I have to say thank you. This is where I'm going to try and get through it. So to my two of my closest friends since high school, Dre and John Capelli. You keep my moral compass calibrated and have taught me over the decades the meaning of true friendship. I wish I had the time here to fully thank you for your support and what you and your family have done for my family and me. I will just say I do have the portfolio that you got from me overnight, because I called you once I got to Pinellas County to tell you that, I have the JNC interview tomorrow. Do you have that portfolio that you loaned me from last time? You had given it to your son who had it at FSU. So you went to the store overnight and left at the house a new portfolio and a pen and a note. That's true friendship. Thank you. To my wife Whitney and the kids who endured me while going through the process. And you've seen them. The public eye is not their thing. So this is hard for them, and to be partnered with me unwittingly or involuntarily is a challenge. But they've endured me during going through the process, and now they're enduring the much more public life that this new job entails, that we've all learned is way more public, I think, than any of us anticipated. And they stand by me, and they tolerate me, and they still support me. Thank you. The night Whitney and I first met, in fact, she warned me that had we known each other in college, when I was doing the whole student government thing, we never would have dated. She didn't like any of our type, is what she said. And I'm not sure that my type has changed, but she saw something in me, and maybe she hoped that I had gotten past all that. But she stuck by me and made innumerable sacrifices, more than I could describe, in the process in my journey as I transitioned from just being a commercial litigator to being something more public, a state PD, and then coming to Tallahassee and do many things. In fact, she stuck by me when I took a 70% pay cut, left a big firm, nice job at Carlton Fields to be a public defender as newlyweds with a baby and a new house. She stuck by me when I had the opportunity to come to Tallahassee to try my hand in government service. She's been with me through many private and public challenges and triumphs, quietly making sacrifices to keep our family moving forward. She surely hates that I'm talking about her so much right now, but let me just say, I love you, and I thank you for being by my side through thick and thin for over 22 years. Let me acknowledge my three beautiful children, Aster, Annabelle, and Emma Claire. Two of them are here. You've met them. They did excellent work supporting me while I got my robe on. All three of you, I am proud of you for who you're growing up to be. Independent, strong-willed, and smart. Competitive and athletic. That's with respect to Annabelle and Emma Claire. And artistic with respect to Aster, who's at New College right now taking summer classes. You all have been the apples of my eye since the days you were born. I've done my best to be present for all your achievements, but to the extent there have been times when you had to share my attention with work responsibilities. Please know that you always have been my motivation to do my bit, applying my talents to help make our system of government and our society more worthy of your hopes and dreams. I love you, and thank you for the sacrifices you've made for me. Thank you to my parents, Jack and Laura. They raised me to be who I am by allowing me to be who I am and supporting me in that. And I've learned a little bit. It's taken a while, but I've learned a little bit in that, in raising our 3 children, to let them, and it's been a struggle, and I'm working at it, but to let my children then be who they are and to grow up to be who they're going to be. I mentioned my grandparents at the press conference, and I will do so again here. Sadie and Adolph Silver, and Adeline and William Tanenbaum. I was privileged to grow up as a child with them still being alive, and I am grateful for that time. And then let me circle back. And so my fondest memories as a child is growing up, just not with my dad, with my mom, but having the grandparents always present. That was the childhood I had, just a regular, common, middle-class family in Pinellas County. And my parents gave that to me, and I'm grateful because it's led me to here. So thank you. I mentioned William Tanenbaum, and I want to make one other mention. Being on this court also has special meaning because in Westlaw, for a very long time, since we actually started logging into Westlaw, without a modem, you could actually use an internet thing. So when I was a lawyer at Carlin Fields, I would do searches sometimes for my own name to see if anything had made it in the reporters. But the search that would, if I searched Tanenbaum, what would continuously come up was this case from the 1960s, W.L. Tanenbaum versus Biscayne Osteopathic Hospital, 1966 Florida Supreme Court decision. It was a statute of frauds promissory estoppel case that my grandfather lost. I hope to renew that name or live up or have the name Tanenbaum have more positive connections to the Supreme Court going forward. I hope when people do searches in the future, the Tanenbaum name won't just be associated with the loss. Thank you to Governor DeSantis for your leadership and your steadfast devotion to reforming the judiciary through your appointments so that the judiciary better reflects the limited charge the people have given the courts through their Constitution. And thank you for putting your trust in me twice, at the first DCA and now the Supreme Court. And thank you again for coming to my alma mater, Seminole High School, to announce my appointment. You had a lasting impact on those back home who were there that day. It's a memory that I will cherish the rest of my days. And I will never forget our conversations about the framers' vision of the judicial power. I will not let you down. Thank you to the Attorney General, James Upmeyer, for your friendship and counsel since those first days upon your arrival in Tallahassee. I treasure our friendship still and the conversations we had about things that shared beliefs in the judiciary and government, separation of powers, everything. So thank you. I want to spend a moment to talk about mentors, those that have been part of the inflection points in my career. If you know anything about my resume, there are a lot of inflection points in my career. 25 jobs to be exact, I think, give or take, plus or minus. Which then reminded me, so in this conversation I was reminded again of the Chief Justice's investiture speech where he noted, I guess during the interview, he said, it's clear to us that you have no plan. And there are days when I feel like that, but when I think about it, and I'm sure the Chief has realized this as well, maybe it's not our plan, but there is a plan. And those jobs were part of a plan. It's part of a journey that has brought me here. So I have no compunction about any job that I left. I gained something for every job I had. But let me make a special mention to the law firm of Carlton Fields. Carlton Fields was an important part of my legal development. I spent, if you add up all the times I was there, I think about 10, 12 years. And yes, there were 4 tours of duty at Carlton Fields. They tolerated me and took me back multiple times, showing their trust in me and their willingness to do excellent legal work, even if it was some brash young lawyer who had the gall to actually leave and then ask for his job back. It's a fantastic group of lawyers filled with many professionals. I could name a few, but then I'd be excluding others. There's so many lawyers there that have had an impact on me, and I truly learned how to be a high-quality lawyer because of Carlton Fields, and I am eternally grateful to the firm for that. I want to say thank you to the late, great Bob Wesley, the former public defender for the Ninth Judicial Circuit, who interviewed me when I was at Carlton Fields, and I came over, and he said, I get an application like yours once a year, and I usually try to talk people out of applying for the job. So I can't pay you anything near what you're earning at Carlton Fields. But he saw something in me and saw something in what, it's basically I was looking for something spiritual in the law, something more passionate. I was trying to find my passion. He saw that, and he gave me a chance. And he taught me a lot about how to be a trial lawyer and how to in client service. I also want to say thank you to Jim Scuthan at the Federal Public Defender's Office in the Middle District, who also saw something in me when I was flailing after the year at the state PD and I couldn't afford it any longer, and we had to sell the house to pay off the credit card that was supporting my public defender days. Jim Scuthan gave me a call and gave me a chance in the Federal PD's office, which then really kind of accelerated my development as not just a trial lawyer, but as an appellate lawyer. Next, I have to thank Alan Windsor, who was mentioned already, and Michael Sevi. These are part of the start of my new chapter in Tallahassee. Michael Sevi, I sent my application or my resume to Michael, and somehow he got it to the desk of Alan Windsor, now Judge Windsor, Chief Judge Windsor, who was the Solicitor General at the time. And I got a call from Alan, and he asked if I wanted to come up and interview. He was looking for someone just like me, and it seemed exciting. I'd never been to Tallahassee to work for an extended period of time. And so I took a chance, and working in the SG's office helped me develop even further. I want to say a special thank you, and I also want to give a nod to Judge Rachel Norby, who at the time, so she welcomed me to that office, and then little did we know that we would end up being appointee partners or appointed colleagues. We were appointed the same day to the First District Court of Appeal, and she's been such a great support and friend over the years, since the day that I came to Tallahassee, even before I came to Tallahassee, actually. I want to say thank you to speakers Richard Corcoran, Jose Oliva, and Chris Sprouse for everything that they did to bring me over to one of the best jobs I ever had, being General Counsel at the Florida House of Representatives, and let me be a lawyer's lawyer and just let me litigate the way that I thought it was the best to litigate. They were great clients, and they gave me opportunities that I never imagined I could have, so I'm grateful to them. And thank you to, and I said this during the last investiture, and I'll say it again, thank you to Matt Ball and Jennifer Kennedy, the two of my best bosses, two of my toughest bosses that I've ever had, but also my best bosses. What makes them fantastic is that they cut the BS. There's no shading, there's no ambiguity. You know always where you stand, and when you mess up, they tell you, and then they don't expect an apology. They just want you to fix it. Don't apologize, just fix the problem. So thank you to them as well. I can't say that I've lived up to, I tell my law clerks when I interview them, I'm not the best boss. I'm actually a terrible boss. I'm a terrible supervisor. I'm very disorganized. But I do know what the standard is, and I'm thankful to them for knowing what I should strive for. Thank you to Dean O'Connor again, but this time for saying yes when I first proposed teaching a class on legislative power, which she later let me develop into the current version, Courts and the Legislature, and I'm grateful to the 24 students that have chosen to take my class in the fall, and I'm sure it had nothing to do with my new position and everything to do with the quality of the teaching. Let me say a special thank you to all the judges and staff at the First District Court of Appeal. Everything that happened around the appointment happened so fast, and I feel like we never really got a chance to say a formal farewell, which I still regret. You all have played such an important part in my development as a judge. You tolerated me again, but you listened to what I had to say. You taught me so many lessons I carry with me here in this new job. Thank you for your collegiality, for being excellent colleagues on the court, for being supportive staff, and being willing to learn and talk with me about things, and just and being present. Thank you, and thank you also for your service and commitment to the rule of law. I truly do. I mean, I have to say it. It is one of the best district courts of appeal in the state. I miss all of you. I told you that at lunch, and I do. I miss you every day. To my new colleagues, many of whom sacrificed an extra day with their families back home to be here with me for this ceremony, I do appreciate it. I know that's a sacrifice, and thank you. Thank you also for making me feel welcome from day one. Thank you for your patience with me as I make my way through some growing pains here at the court. This group is the best. I mean, it's a moment in time, and we can't control when we get appointed, but I think about what a blessing it is to be appointed in this moment in time, to have this crew of 6 as my colleagues as they come on the court. So thank you to everyone. All right, we're almost there. And I know that the only thing really standing between, besides Dre and John, the only thing standing between you and the reception is me and my pontificating about judicial philosophy. And no, I'm not going to talk about the prior panel precedent rule either. But I do want to briefly describe my judicial philosophy and my vision going forward, which is reflected in the 3 quotes in the program. So, Brad, actually, if you read the program, the first quote is about natural law. So it's right there. Let me say, though, anyone who has seen one of my interviews or taken my class knows that my favorite court opinion is Marbury versus Madison. It is often misunderstood for what it says. The truth is, it sets out a description of how limited the judicial power is. Yes, it does say it is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. I don't dispute that. But that does not mean that courts declare what the law is. People, the citizenry should not hang on every word of what a high court says about the law to know what the law is. Let me explain. The first quote from Cicero highlights my view that there is an objective, transcendent truth about what the law is. Ryan, you can check my work later and correct me where I'm wrong. It is external to us. The people acknowledge this in the U.S. and Florida constitutions, and they give the legislature the authority to deliberate on it and reduce it to statutes that govern us. The people and the legislature have the authority. The people and the legislature have the authority to fix in place at the moment they act, in accordance with predetermined rules for doing so, what the law is and what that law is. The judicial power has no role in this. Rather, it is absolutely constrained by these enactments that precede it, by the people and the legislature. Going back to Marbury, Marshall explains that it is the people's original and supreme will that organizes the government and assigns to different departments their respective powers. It may either stop there or establish certain limits not to be transcended by those departments. So when the people vested judicial power in the court, this is me speaking now, not Doug Marshall. So when the people vested judicial power in the courts, including this one, they vested only that power, and they should not exercise other powers. 2 decades after Marbury, in a case not as well cited, Osborne versus Bank of the U.S., Marshall expanded on the idea of limited judicial power. And yes, I have been thinking about judicial power for a couple of years. And I encourage everyone else to do the same. Judicial power, this is a quote, judicial power, as contradistinguished from the power of the laws, has no existence. Think about that. Judicial power has no existence. Courts are the mere instruments of the law and can will nothing. When they are said to exercise a discretion, it is a mere legal discretion, a discretion to be exercised in discerning the course prescribed by law. And when that is discerned, it is the duty of the court to follow it. Judicial power is never exercised for the purpose of giving effect to the will of the judge, always for the purpose of giving effect to the will of the legislature, or in other words, to the will of the law. To put this differently, the sole purpose of the judicial power, this is again me speaking, sorry, I don't want Justice Marshall to get tagged with anything I might say. The sole purpose of the judicial power is to find what the law is, which is objectively true and discernible, with some effort, by all who are governed by it, not just judges. The judicial power simply operates as a conduit for that law, which dictates a particular remedy for a particular infringement as defined by the law under a certain set of facts, if proven. The judicial power does not declare the law, it searches for it, finds it, and says what has been found. Putting Chief Justice Marshall's statement about the judiciary saying what the law is in context, those who apply the rule to particular cases, this is Marbury again, to particular cases, must of necessity expound and interpret that rule. And if two laws conflict with each other, the courts must decide on the operation of each. This is the extent of judicial power. No more, no less. That gets me to the second quote from Justice Thomas. Is anyone waiting for bated breath? Like, well, how is he going to tie Taylor Swift in all this? I'm getting there. We as judges have a duty to get the law right, and a duty to recognize that what we or our predecessors have said is not the law. What judges say about the law, as Ryan was saying before, what judges say about the law is evidence of the law. Every generation of judges has the right and responsibility to join the ongoing conversation about what the law is. How exciting is that? I mean, it's very liberating, right, Brad? It's liberating to be able to join that conversation, to be part of it and engage in it. It's our duty and responsibility to consider carefully what our predecessors have said, not to discard it or ignore it, to consider what they've said carefully about what they've found the law to be, but also to do our own work, researching our legal history and traditions, and yes, digging into those dusty books. Perhaps finding new evidence of what the law is, and then reaching our own conclusions as to that. If, in our considered judgment, what our predecessors have said about the law is demonstrably wrong, a conflict between their ascertainment and what we have ascertained to be the objective meaning of the law as fixed in time, we have a duty to say so and follow the law itself. This is true judicial restraint and humility, a recognition of the limits of the judicial power vis-a-vis the other powers of government. That the judicial power by design is very modest. But this court, historically, has not always seen the exercise of judicial power in this limited sense. A serious conservative judicial philosophy, in turn, does not require hesitation or incrementalism in correcting obvious judicial errors of the past, especially when done in the form of judicial arrogations of power at the expense of the powers of the other two branches. Our fealty always is to the objectively true law, the natural law is reflected in the Constitution and statutes, and not to the judicial institutions that seek to ascertain it. These institutions, including this court, have sufficiently solid historical foundations to survive self-reflection and criticism that the independent constitutional officers who make up those institutions are duty-bound to perform. Now I close with the Taylor Swift quote. If I could have had walk-up music for this ceremony, it's the solemnity of the occasion. I'm already pushing the limits by having a Taylor Swift quote in the program. Or theme music for this investiture, Long Live would be it. It is no secret that I'm a Swiftie. Friendship bracelets and all. Thank you, Justice Grosshans. Taylor supposedly wrote the song to her fans and crew to celebrate their breakthrough success after much hard work in the face of doubters and cynics. People who called Taylor's individual creativity and approach to music absurd. My approach to every legal job, all 25 of them, has been this. Always have the courage to challenge the established presumptions, to ask the tough why questions, even to long-established ways of doing things. Always be willing to put in the effort to find the answers to those why questions, and the humility and intellectual honesty to follow the effort wherever it leads. And never, ever be outworked. There have been friends and colleagues who have joined me along the way in the movement to make our judiciary better, a movement that I've been part of since law school. And there were the naysayers when we asked those questions and pushed back on established approaches. Yet we persevered and kept the movement going. That has been the story of my journey to now. And yes, there are those of us, folks by my side, we have fought dragons and won. I dedicate the song to those who have been with me and had faith in me all along, and to those friends and colleagues who were willing to hear me out, even if they were doubters to begin with, and engage me with healthy academic skepticism as we made each other's thinking better in the common cause of fighting those dragons being the ossified, unchallenged presumptions, why do we do this? Because it's the way we've always done it. Even though it's either wrong or lacked any sort of analytical support. Those are the dragons. And those that have been with me as we fought those dragons of the past and returning the judiciary to the framers' vision of restraint in the exercise of judicial power. And to those out there hearing me now and hearing this speech, who want to join, and this is a quote, this band of thieves in ripped up jeans as we rule the world in the next wave of the movement. There's plenty of room, and I welcome the advocates out there who want to start taking up the charge and make that part of their arguments too. It's out there for the taking. We can fight dragons together. So finally, to my colleagues once again, thank you for your warmth and welcoming to the court. I'm overwhelmed. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about all of you. I really am lucky. I know I can be an acquired taste. And we're not always going to agree. Still, you have shown me only patience and collegiality. Please know that I have the utmost respect for each of you and care about you deeply for your intellect, your individual experiences and journeys that got you here. I think the chief told me once at a lunch or breakfast, it was breakfast, wouldn't be lunch, breakfast, about each of us gets here on our own paths, and it's not necessarily we're not necessarily the most qualified to be here, but we each fought our own battles to get here, and we're here for a particular reason, and we should respect that. It makes the court stronger. I respect your legal perspectives, your commitments to the job, and what you bring to this court, and your commitment to the institution and to the rule of law and getting it right. I'm truly excited. If we could just end the speech. I'm truly excited about the prospect of working with you, engaging with you on matters of the highest importance to the people of this state. It is not just a privilege to serve as a justice of this court. It is a true privilege to serve in that capacity with each of you. To you, colleagues, and to my family, friends, and the public, I pledge my undying and unflinching service to keeping this the free state of Florida. I pledge to you my hardest and best work in fulfilling the duties of this office, which I am humbled to hold and privileged to hold, and I still feel unworthy to be in this position. But every day, I will come to work striving to make you proud and to make myself worthy, to put in the work to make myself worthy of the trust that everyone has put in me. Thank you, everyone. I will see you at the reception.
Thank you, Adam. That was great. I now recognize Andrea and John Capelli, as we've heard, dear friends of Justice Tanenbaum, to offer the benediction.
Thank you, Chief Justice, members of the court, family, friends. Adam, many years ago, I wrote you a letter as you were discerning your faith and your future. I found the Divine Mercy prayer card in the sleeve of my old college calculator. Jesus was radiant with the words at the bottom, "Jesus, I trust in you." So I sent it to you. My message to you then is the same as it is today. Believe, Adam. Have faith in God, faith in others, and faith in yourself. Here's what you taught me. It's okay to challenge others. You do it so well. And stand up for what you believe. That at any point in life, you can be called. You have been called. You just need to be open to his message. It is my honor to give the benediction at this ceremony for my dear friend of 40 years, Florida Supreme Court Justice Adam Scott Tanenbaum. As you walk this path of service, may you be guided to uphold the law with integrity, wisdom, and compassion. May your brilliant mind, which is like a vast ocean, seek justice with humility. May your servant's heart give you the grace to seek what is right over what is easy. May you be granted patience in deliberation and unwavering devotion to the dignity of every person who comes before you. Through our Lord and the intercession of St. Thomas More, patron saint of lawyers, give you strength in times of conflict and peace in the knowledge you are born, called for this position of judicial power to protect the Constitution of the state of Florida. Lord, we pray you surround Adam and his beautiful family with your protection. Bless them and be gracious to them. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay, before we end this ceremonial session, we ask everyone to join Justice Tanenbaum at a reception at the FSU College of Law in the Rotunda, 2 blocks west of here. This reception is sponsored by the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society. I see Fred Karlinski there. Fred, thank you so much for everything that you and the society have done for the court. We've done so much largely under the firm guidance of Justice Grosshans to try to, beautify the court and make it a good place for people to experience on their visits, especially student groups and everything. So thank you very much for everything that you and your team do for us. The reception is also sponsored by the Hillsborough County Bar Association, the Christian Legal Society, and the Clearwater Bar Association. I just want to conclude again on behalf of the court. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Justice Tanenbaum. We're looking forward to continuing the partnership. Congratulations again to your beautiful family. It's been so great to see so many people here, so many friends. One good thing about appointing 2 swamp creatures like Adam and me is that we get to see all of our colleagues from all our various chapters of our lives here in Tallahassee. So it's especially fun to see all the legislative people here, which is a rare treat. I see Alan Levine back there. But thank you very much, and I think that's about it. Thank you very much.